Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards, because we are the best, and we're not wizards, no matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for July. We're past the 6-month period. We're on the slippery slope down on the other side, and recently we've just passed the 4th of July, which was America celebrating the day where they said goodbye to the English. And unfortunately, while we'd like to say goodbye to the English, they appear to have got through to the final of the Euros. Now, at this point in time, I do not know what the final result was between them and the Fair Italy, and does nobody else. So I'm not going to comment on it in case I'm right or in case I'm wrong. So I'm just not going to say anything at all. I just want to be in the situation where I just want to maybe leave it to somebody else. I want to instead focus on a different world, and the kind of world where I want to be maybe not a bit passive. I want to have a little bit of interaction. When I play something, I want to feel enveloped in the atmosphere. I want the media there to shout at me as I'm playing. I maybe just don't want to find the parts. Maybe I want to scan a bit and then play. So, I want somebody to be able to tell me a tale. I want somebody not only to be able to tell me a small tale, I want them to tell me a big tale. I almost want them to be a bit Taelmoor. So, joining me from Delve Brothers to talk about a scan and play dungeon crawling type game called Taelmoor, I have got Zach Delventhal, who is, I've been told by himself, is the best of the 3 Delventhal brothers. Is that true, Zach? Welcome to the show.
I mean, I was told you were going to keep that under wraps, but sure, we'll make it official.
I've got Twitter screenshots from our DM conversation, which
see, I thought I deleted
which
those.
It's like, this is the Olympics. Hi, congratulations, you're in the Olympics. You're just about to get the gold. We're not talking about bringing in the bronze and the silver. I felt it was quite a bit nasty about saying Will was the bronze. I don't know if you guys have had a falling out or something. I wonder, maybe is Eli the silver boy, but so we're going to see, because you've just now put yourself under a lot of pressure, because if this comes across quite badly, then there could be some kind of family feud. I mean, this could turn into kind of like a Judge Judy type situation where you end up in court and arguing over who should have done the podcast instead of your bad self. So there you go.
Who gets custody of like the dragon and everything else?
Who gets the app? Who gets the dungeon tiles? Who gets to own the art? And the name. I mean, they might make you even change your surname. I mean, it could be tough. Anyway,
Delve Bro.
It could be just Delve.
1 of 3.
It could just be Delve Brother -1. I mean, that's how they could end up deciding to call the company. I mean,
that seems marketable.
It seems possible. I mean, people like a bit of controversy. I mean, there has been recent controversy in the entire kind of role-playing Dungeons and Dragons type world of late, which we're obviously not gonna talk about. But so maybe that could be a good angle. This is just so bad. Are you well though, sir?
Get some clicks.
Get some clicks. There's no such thing as bad press. Are you well though?
That's what they say. Am I well? I am well. You know, it's been I think it's been a tough year for all of us. Yeah. And I've been cooped up in a tiny apartment with 2 kids and the wife, all of whom I love dearly, particularly when I see a little bit less of them. But I think I've turned a corner. I don't know. In the U.S., things have improved a little bit. I'm still not getting out that much, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it feels different. It feels different. Little less cabin fever than maybe 3 months ago.
Have they, where you are, have they kind of relaxed the restrictions? Because over here, we're still pretty much kind of, we're going to keep the restrictions going. In fact, our first minister, because in Scotland, the COVID situation is governed by our first minister. They've said, like, we're going to keep masking and we're going to keep a little bit sensible until we actually know, because of this new variant. Is things where you are, is it a bit more kind of easy peasy? Are people kind of saying, well, you can do what you want as long as you know, I guess is what I'm asking.
I mean, that's basically been true the whole time in America. There have been some restrictions that have popped up, and I'm in Minnesota, which we're pretty careful up here.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I was always more careful than whatever restrictions were in place,
Yeah.
so I never noticed them that much. I think they are all lifted now, and personally, and the infection rate is quite low in my area. So I am relaxing, but I am still like wearing a mask, at least if I'm not eating or whatever.
Yeah.
Just trying to be sensible, taking it slow.
How old are your kids? I mean, are they high school? Are they much younger than that? Are they in kind of like what you would say junior school?
Yeah. They are 5 and 2.5. So
wow.
Kindergarten, or going into kindergarten actually this year, and daycare.
That's amazing, because it's kind of strange, because especially for the 2.5-year-old, and from a conscious kind of learning point of view, going outside and wearing masks and staying away from people, that's kind of all you consciously know. I mean, it's maybe slightly different for the 5-year-old. They might kind of remember a time, but it must be so weird to be brought up in a world to say you've got to stay away from kind of people. Has it also meant that you're kind of being away from your kind of your kind of parents and parental units and in-laws and people like that as well? Is that kind of stopped? Is that being kind of nailed on the head as well?
Yeah, well, so for us, we moved after college to Minnesota. My parents are on the East Coast; they're in Connecticut,
right.
And Laura's parents are as well, actually.
All right.
So, and that's actually, it turns out very difficult to raise a couple of small children in the city on your own. But we usually saw them twice a year. And so it made things weird, because there was a point in last summer where we were just going so stir crazy that we couldn't stay in the apartment anymore.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, we're going to drive across the country. And we like avoided public bathrooms and stuff. It was the weirdest road trip, because at that point we had no idea how it was transmitted.
Yeah.
We were all terrified.
Yeah.
But we're going to drive across the country. They have like a little like extra cabin on their property. We will quarantine in there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then all of us will stay together on the property.
Wow.
I think it ended up being like a month and a half, 2 months, since I was working remotely.
Yeah.
We were able to do that. So that was really nice. And we don't usually do anything like that. But then we did miss Christmas. So like, it's been a mix of weird things this year.
Yeah, it's like we've just come back from Belfast because we were overseeing my wife's parents. I haven't seen them in about 18 months, potentially almost like kind of longer than that, which is kind of like a strange situation, because again, we kind of miss Christmas and everything like that. And it was just, as you say, it was kind of like a weird type. In terms then of let's wind this clock back a bit, because I briefly mentioned Eli and Will. And obviously you being the alpha brother here. But joking aside, the game's being developed by the three of you together. Okay. In terms of you've mentioned kind of off kind of cast that there's there's a reasonable-ish kind of age gap between you. So kind of growing up, did you all play together anyway, or was there kind of like a closer kind of playing together relationship between you and one of the other brothers, or how did that kind of happen? And is that where you started kind of playing kind of board games together then as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, growing up, we played a ton of board games. We started playing D&D pretty early as well.
Uh-huh.
I mostly only played D&D with Eli, the one who's 2 years younger than me.
Yeah.
But the whole family would play board games, and it became, a way to spend the time, I guess. And this was a while ago, so it was before the big board game scene that exists now really came up, but we still managed to get some unusual ones, and like they'd be in. I remember there was one, I can't recall the name of it at all, but it was actually included in some sort of D&D magazine, and there was a map you'd move around, and just blew our minds. So we started building our own board games pretty early. They were terrible, but it was a very big part of our lives. And in fact, Eli went into video game development as a career. So it's been something he's been doing for probably a decade now. And that was actually the original plan, was to build a video game, the three of us. But we ended up shifting after we played a few prototypes.
I think you're not the first person that I spoke to with regards to board game development that had started off going down the kind of the video game route, and then it was a case of, well, I think it's kind of like, to prototype and to get proof of concept on a video game, you literally have to have the video game a larger amount of the video game done for you to say, first of all, is this any good? Is it any fun? Is it commercially kind of viable? I think you have to have a lot more of the kind of the assets and everything like that. Whereas a board game, you can literally have 62 pieces of white paper, 6 dice, a couple of counters, and you could say, okay, let's play this thing, and you can get to a point where you can have like a white copy of the game, even without the art. And it can be a completely playable game where people can actually kind of contribute to the feedback and give you kind of, and kind of help in the development. So I completely kind of understand where you're coming from with that. In terms of, in terms of Eli, is Eli the kind of the artistic one then? Is that what he's doing on video games, or?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's he talks a lot about, his big thing is he just wants people to have fun. And I am a little bit more technically minded than him. I love games as a thing, and I love systems. So I'm definitely the one who gets into sort of strategic games and stuff like that. Anything you need a spreadsheet to play, I love.
Okay.
But Eli is more of he just likes seeing that smile on people's face, So he's always coming up with like fun little hooks, stuff like that, and it's why he pushed so much harder into video games than the two of us did, at least up until this point. And yeah, so we all, we're all a mix of technical and creative, but I think that's definitely a focus of his. Yeah.
And what is it you do for a living then, for a job?
I'm a software developer and sometimes instructor as well. Yeah, so I've been working in sort of web development, open source, blockchains, stuff like that.
That is the latest thing, isn't it? Everybody talks about blockchains, and I have no idea what a blockchain is. Even
they do. I could, I'm working on a course right now. You could take it.
Are you actually ready? What is a blockchain? How do you spell the word blockchain? And then kind of go on from there. Do you know what people say to me? Well, it's kind of like to do with encryption, and it's kind of to do with it's kind of to do with the next big thing. And people talk about kind of NFTs and mixing everything together, and they talk about cryptocurrency and stuff. And I'm just like, I'm still confused. As far as I'm aware, blockchain is something that I am potentially leaving to one side until it hits me like a train, and there's no other way I can do but avoid it.
That is the smart thing to do, I think. Yeah, because I'm not into cryptocurrency or NFTs or anything like that, and it's a weird space because it's so new that mostly the people who are in it are scam artists, for lack of a better term. So it's a tough space to be in. But the tech is really interesting, and the tech has potential, and so that's the angle that I approach it from. Yeah. And I sort of fell into it. It was an early job I had, was working on an open source blockchain project.
Wow.
There aren't that many people out there working on it, so it just sort of one thing led to another.
I think it's kind of like, it's the old kind of fool's gold thing where people are kind of trying to roll out the next big thing so that they can make a couple of $1 million and then disappear off into the sunset.
Yeah.
And it's like most things, there's kind of real application for these things, but people haven't thought about, well, there are a few people that are thinking about the applications for it. As I say, when I've looked at it, you kind of come up, like what you've said, I kind of come up against these things where you've got these sensible things saying, well, the use of blockchain is an unbelievable way that we're going to be able to control the flow of information with regards to logistics and stuff like that. And then I've got another person talking about blockchain, which says, sign another 5 people up and I can make you $100,000. And you're just like going,
right.
Oh, okay. And it's in the same page, and it's just the one section and LinkedIn, and then it's on the next section in LinkedIn. It's like, I don't know who to believe, basically.
Well, I think anytime you've got a lack of knowledge out there in the public, that's an opportunity to take advantage of people, I think, is ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah. In terms of Taelmoor, is this your first game together? And what I mean by that is there another 5 or 6 games sitting in kind of A4 folders or folders on desktop folders kind of waiting to go out there, or is this the first one you've kind of completely kind of collaborated on?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the first project the 3 of us have worked on to this scale. We've worked on game jams and stuff like that throughout our lives and collaborated on little things here or there. Had an ill-fated Let's Play YouTube channel for a little while, but
you don't get it. No, you don't get it. No, Zach, gotta stop you there. You don't get to
all right.
say you've done a Let's Play YouTube channel and not mention its name. Is it gone? Is it disappeared?
It's no, you can still find it out there, and it is. I mean, it's fine. It had potential, but it's like anything content creation. It's a lot of work to get that up and running. And our sound wasn't great, but it was called Bad Enough Dudes.
Oh, okay.
And it was basically, at the time we were playing a lot of video games just to stay in touch.
Yeah.
And so we were like, we should just record this. Like people are doing this, and then maybe we'll build an audience. Maybe it can become our job at some point. But we kept at it for, I want to say 6 months, maybe a year of weekly, probably videos. So we were pretty dedicated to it for a little while, but we were just starting out. There was a lot we didn't know, and it's just a tough thing to do in general, but we had fun together with it.
It's really difficult. I think it's such a difficult space, because I mean, we've done YouTube and we'll continue to do YouTube kind of now and again, but I have gone down the line of saying, right, I'm going to just kind of do some videos, and it's really, really difficult you're kind of trying to nail jelly to a wall, and some people they do very, very well, and they just, they produce content, and then people just go, yeah, this is the content for me, and it kind of takes off, and then you're like, and then other people produce content, and you just see it kind of never, ever kind of really going anywhere. And
yeah, some of it's really good.
And so, yeah, and the amount of work that it takes to actually put videos together. It's not, look, we'll record this and I will go through it, and it will take a couple of hours to go through, and I'll make sure that I sound fantastic, and obviously you sound less so fantastic because I am slightly egotistical.
Insert some extra and ahs.
Yeah, that's good. If you could just say and again, then I can just pepper that all the way through the recording and give you some extra long pauses, and have you say something like, yes, I am one of those blockchain scam artists. And, just things like that, just to kind of do that. But, at the end of the day, I could probably, once we've chatted, I could probably get this out there and ready within a couple of hours at the maximum. Making videos is just like, it's like you set everything up and you think everything's going to work, and then you play it back and it's like garbage. You're just like, I'm going to do this all again. And or you'll put it out there and you go, that the lighting was perfect, the sound was perfect, I think this worked really well, I think we said some really entertaining things, and then it'll like flatline. It'll beep, and you'll just be like, oh my goodness. So yeah, I totally see where you're coming from. Content creation is a very, very difficult thing, and I think it's kind of been made out that content creation is some kind of easy thing that anybody can do, and I think, yes, you can, anyone can do it, but it's incredibly, it can be incredibly tough, and it can be a little bit, when it's wonderful, and when it's not, it's very, very kind of difficult.
It takes a lot of work to make it look as easy. As a lot of people do make it look. And usually if they're a big channel or something, they've got a team, right? Of people who know this stuff, and what is it that just went around social media recently, that like all the big influencers, when they're taking selfies with their cameras, like it's shot in a mirror or something, totally not shot in a mirror, totally shot with like a professional DSLR, and they just hold their camera in front of them to make it look casual.
I was
like, of course, if that's your living.
Yes, that's it. And if you're going to make like, if you literally get 2 million interactions off that, and that's going to guarantee you a wage, then of course you're going to do it. I mean, that's how you're going to take it. But no, I guess what I'm doing is I completely empathize when you say doing YouTube for 6 months and then just going, I kind of totally get that. So from that, and with you guys being in the software background, and doing what you were going to do together, what then made you decide to go into kind of like the board game side of things? I mean, did you just transfer what you'd done in the video game onto a board game kind of format?
Basically, I mean, it's definitely a game that lends itself, because it is half a video game, the way we've built it. Right. So we have the board game, which we've put a lot of effort into. We've hired great artists. We are in love with the pieces, and it's the physical feel of a board game is one of the most important things to us as players. But at the same time, the game works hand in hand with this app. It isn't an add-on. The app is what is sort of driving the whole thing forward. So it is a lot of our technical skills transferred very directly. And then, there were differences too, but yeah, the whole thing started when we had a prototyping phase. Our goal wasn't like, I'm tired of video games, let's make a board game. Yeah. We had a bunch of ideas. I think we have a list of, it must be 50 ideas at this point. And we sort of rated them all, decided what we were really excited about, and then had a period of building prototypes. And so we would do 2-week prototypes of, I think, 5 or 6 games is what we ended up doing. And then we'd like put them out in front of our community and have people play them, and we play them. And in the end, we were deciding between Animal Crossing meets Harry Potter and Taelmoor. And we just loved the prototype of Taelmoor. We loved the interaction. We loved the physical feel of it, even though at the time we were just using like little print and play things with sort of stock art. So that's the direction we went.
I think sometimes an idea just sings to you. regardless of how well presented the other one is. It's like you'll have an idea and you go, yeah, this looks great and plays great, but there's something about this kind of thing, and I don't know if it's a passion thing. If you look at something and you say, yeah, this is all wonderful, but I feel a little bit of more of an emotional connection with this project, and I think that can have such a huge connection with stuff. You mentioned you've done a bit of acting, so you'll know what I'm talking about. I've done a little bit of acting as well, like damn fool most of the time, but you'll understand that, the best performances you always do, you always feel you have a little bit of more of an emotional connection with the thing that you're portraying.
Absolutely.
As opposed to just going out, and you can be going through the motions and putting on the best accent, doing the best mannerisms, hitting your cues on point, but you walk away feeling kind of like, yeah, there was something just missing from that. And on our side, you could have something where you're kind of like, you feel I kind of get where we are with what I'm meant to be doing with this character, and it just comes across as kind of like a better performance because you've got that kind of emotional connection kind of there. And so I get that for like something like kind of Taelmoor. Do you want to explain a little bit about the main mechanics behind it? Because I obviously, my absolutely horrific intro, I mentioned it's like the scan and play. Now, one of the things people are going to talk about is like, well, there's recently been another game out there that uses the kind of the scanning type mechanic, and we're going to say we're not going to mention that little lucky ducky. Going to move on. But do you want to explain a little bit about how kind of Taelmoor kind of works as kind of like as a game, and how you play, and how maybe a round would play as well, just to give us an idea, Zach?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a scan and play game. So every piece has a QR code on it. And they also, by the way, I know people have had mixed experiences with QR code scanning. I think ours works very well. Ours works better than any other game I've played with QR codes, but they also all have just a 2-letter code you can manually enter, which is fast and smooth. So if the lighting's bad in your room or whatever, you can just use that. But the point is, every single piece has a connection to the digital world, right? That QR code or that 2-letter code, whichever you're using, is the bridge between the physical pieces you're holding in your hand and the digital aspects of the game. So basically, you'll start the game by opening up the app and picking a scenario and bringing your friends into the app. They can all join with their own phones. They don't even have to be in the same room. It works over the internet.
Wow.
Or you can do multiple players hot seat too if you do just want to use one device. But you all select your classes, and we've got your classic RPG classes, the barbarian, the wizard, dwarf, elf. So you pick a class, you have a little combat deck, and you start the scenario. And I mean, that's basically it. That's all the setup. It's very, very fast because the scenario is going to walk you through from there. It's going to say, okay, you find yourself in this room, and it'll give you the 2-letter code, and you go find it in your box and you put it out. And there's such and such character in the room. There's these items in the room. And the story is, there's a kid that's been kidnapped and you have to rescue them, or, you're stuck in prison and you have to break out, or whatever it is. And we've got some great writing. We've hired some writers. We also are okay writers ourselves. So we're going to have 8 different scenarios at launch, maybe more, depending on stretch goals. And our plan is just to keep writing them as long as people are interested in them, which is, something you can do digitally. You can just deliver more content whenever you want without having to ship anything. But yeah, from there, it just sort of, it's tough. I've had a lot of feedback like, but what's the game? How do you win?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you just play it. You win when the scenario is over. In the kidnapping example, you win when you rescue the kid, right? But that's not true for the prison escape scenario. Then you win when you escape from the prison. So you sort of you explore the map. You're going to lay down new tiles as you explore them.
Yeah.
You might have some puzzles or challenges, pick a lock, there's a riddle or something like that. And then there's combat too. If you run into a hostile enemy, we have a sort of light deck building experience that you play through with combat. So it's a holistic, the idea is to sort of bring that text adventure, that old school text adventure, that old school computer RPG experience, and make it physical, make it something you can touch.
Have people got the ability to also have the materials in a physical format? Because one of the only kind of criticisms I hear of app-driven kind of games is this is all going to be very good until the app is no longer supported. What do we do once the app is kind of no longer supported? So in terms of that, is there options for people to play a kind of as time goes on, for them to gather the kind of
with like a storybook?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I totally get that concern. And we have heard it from folks, and we've put a lot of thoughts into what we can do about that, because the reality is a storybook or something like that isn't going to do it, because we're doing things you just can't do in a storybook. A simple example, in the prison escape scenario, there's like this prison complex, and there's a guard who's patrolling, and they're just walking on a set path. And you have to avoid them. In the beginning, you don't have your weapons, so if you get caught in a fight, you're just dead. So it's this sort of cat and mouse thing, where the guard has like an actual location that the app is keeping track of, and the guard is moving around, and you have to move in such a way as to avoid them. And there's really no way to replicate something like that in a storybook. But, we care about this, and we're software developers. We know how quickly stuff goes obsolete and the costs that go into updating something. So we came up with this. We have a long-term support plan for Taelmoor. And basically it boils down to this. Within, I actually forget the time period we put on it. I think it was 3 years. Within 3 years of releasing the app, or at such point as if we stop supporting it sooner than that for some reason, we're going to release a web version of it, which is based on web standards. So like the Space Jam website, this is very familiar among web developers. I don't know if your listeners are familiar with it.
Everybody, I think, has heard of the I think it's the Space Jam website. It almost turned into one of the world's first kind of memes. Which is, it was kind of like, it was an example of the worst kind of practices with regards to kind of like web design. It was absolutely
well, no. So it is. It's a hideous site, but it still works.
Yeah.
It was made in 1996, and without anyone updating any of the code, it still works over 20 years later, right? And because that's how the web is designed. The web is designed to always be backwards compatible. So a web version's coming out within a few years, and we're also going to open source the code for that web version. So if it does need to get updated, other people can update it. And it might not work over the internet. Maybe we can't afford to maintain servers forever. We might not be able to do that, but we can guarantee that there is always a version out there that you can at least play locally, will at least support all the scenarios that exist. And I'm an open source dev, so I sort of love open source. There's questions around the business issues around that, but if we've reached a point where we're no longer around, then there's nothing I'd like better than to sort of give it out to the wider internet and let people remix it, continue to support it, whatever it needs.
You play video games. I play video games. I mean, I can go and watch Casablanca, the film, whenever I want to. I can just go and find that movie. I could probably find it on Blu-ray. I could find it on DVD. I could find it on Laserdisc. However, I would not be able to go and play right now Banjo-Kazooie, the N64 version, unless I was breaking the law. So I guess, I mean, this is a bigger question about, you know, people are asking questions about kind of like streaming services and things going to like a subscription model, and where's the ability for people to actually have access to something on an ongoing basis. So, you know, the question about whether it's, you know, your product is going to be available in a couple of years, that's part of a huge, massive behemoth of a questions about is like when Disney Plus decide that they no longer want people to watch Star Wars movies, you know, they could just stop people from watching Star Wars movies because people won't have it.
Just turn it off.
Yeah, exactly. Just stop people from, you know, it's like Netflix does that all the time. You know, it's like Spotify could absolutely just remove everything to do with the Beatles. You know, it's like, and nobody would be able to have access unless they had the original vinyl. So it's like a strange kind of question. With this being kind of like a hybrid, what's it been like in terms of the marketing side of things? And because there's three of you, has it been like a triple effort? Have you found it easier to try and get the marketing done? Because you are essentially like a small team. I mean, most of the people that I know that work on Kickstarters, unless they're part of a reasonable, obviously established organization, if you're Kickstarting for the first time, you're usually doing it by yourself. So how have you found the kind of the marketing of the game, especially kind of like the pitching side of things? Because it is not like what you would say a traditional kind of Luddite, you know, board game, basically.
It's tough. It's been tough to market. You know, we come up with shorthands like scan and play, but, you know, only some people know what that term means, and what it means for our game is different than what it means for some other games too. It's something you really have to play. So that is something we've had front and center for months now. You know, the development process has been really transparent. We have a demo web version of the game out right now. You know, you can play it print and play. You can play it on Tabletop Simulator and try it out and get a feel for it, because we really think it doesn't click until you've played it. But it can be hard, even if it's totally free, even if it's Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia, so you don't have to print anything out. There's still the barrier to entry of, you know, 15, 20 minutes of somebody's time. So getting it out there, we've done a lot of GIFs. GIFs are great. Show the thing in motion. And I mean, I've been through so many versions of like the pitch. And I am dissatisfied with all of them, but I try. Your listeners can tell me how well I explained it this time. I think it was kind of a mess, but yeah, it has been good to split up duties a little bit across the team. You know, Willem has done a lot of like entrepreneurial business stuff. He started a couple of little companies. Did a game for cats thing that got pretty big. And Eli's got the video game background and I've got more of the technical background. So we've sort of all found our niches in the company, but it's also just sort of a all hands on deck thing. So we all have our hands in a little bit of everything.
What was it like trying to get kind of like then kind of previews done, you know, actual kind of named individuals to kind of have a look at the game and produce kind of like content on the game to explain it? Because I'm very, very conscious on Kickstarter that I know of people who are like, well, if this person hasn't looked at the game, I don't know if I'm that interested, kind of thing. Or they'll look for like 3 or 4 people that have looked at something and went, right, okay, well that you know, if they're willing to have a look at it, I'm gonna listen to what they say because our views on things kind of align. So and obviously over all of this, Zach, we've got the pandemic in place, which means you just cannot go and rock up at somebody's, you know, like any of these conventions that haven't been happening or game nights or anything like that in order to be able to demo that. So how have you, as that again, kind of that has been another one, it's like, yep, this is the perfect year to try and get a game out
there. Well, we're sort of hoping that that we've timed it up just right, that things are starting to subside, and everyone's looking at board games to pick up on Kickstarter. But it has been a tough year to develop a board game in, and you know, Tabletop Simulator has helped, Tabletopia has helped, there have been a bunch of remote conventions, which is in some ways convenient because I don't have to get on a plane and fly somewhere. I can attend usually more or less for free or pretty close to it, and get some people to play. So, we've been doing a lot of that, at least in the first half of this year, especially, just trying to get it out in front of people. But the attendance isn't amazing at those, and it's tough, when the whole convention is in a Discord chat. It's really, if you're in person, you just like put on the shirt and like wave at people and say, come play my game. Yeah. But when you're in Discord chat, it's sort of awkward. You're like, here's some game art. You want to check it out? No,
a lack of direct interaction. But, I mean, even on something like, I've played games on Tabletop Simulator, and I've played a few kind of demo versions over the last couple of months because, just like you, businesses were trying to get the word out, and they says, well, if you come on Tabletop Simulator, we can have a go. But there was nothing worse than kind of like the 2 or 3 points of awkward silence where nobody said anything. Yeah. And it's just like,
it's not the same.
It's not the same. I don't know. It's like kind of maybe doing kind of like, well, this, it'd be like acting without an audience, if you know what I mean. And you're just like going,
yeah,
I don't know if this is any good. Alas, poor Yorick.
Well, I'll tell you, my wife actually, she's an acting teacher.
Wow.
For like kids and stuff at a children's theater company, a local. It's actually a pretty big theater, but it's in Minnesota. So the pandemic hits, and all their classes switched to remote. And so, I think she actually did a great job because she switched to more monologues and more like, make TikTok videos, right? Do stuff that makes sense on your own in front of a video camera, and you can still, flex those muscles. But there were other teachers that were trying to do, scene work and stuff like that. And it's just, that is all about looking another person in the eyes and having that immediate, reaction to them. And it's just very tough to replicate over Zoom, especially with like new actors who are kids and haven't done that much in person already.
I know that over here in this country, the BBC, they did a couple of TV series where they actually had the actors speaking to each other over Zoom. And they says, well, what we'll do is we'll just have it so that these are actors kind of having a chat over Zoom. There's no way to frame it. You can't have a dramatic thing. And there's also like, over in the States, you'll have your kind of your stable soap operas, But over here, they basically, all of a sudden, these stable kind of soap operas, like, I think you've got Days of Our Lives and stuff like that over there. I don't even, Sunset Beach, I think, was another one that was years old, but very cheesy, but very funny. But over here, they basically had to work around the kind of the pandemic. So they basically had the actors kind of having very deep and meaningful conversations, but being kind of like at least 3 meters apart. So it's kind of like, it's like, what's wrong? You've got that look in your eye. It's like, Murray, I can't even see your eyes. What you talking about? It's that kind of that kind of situation. You could tell they actually said they had to put a glass pane between actors and kind of reduce the lighting so it didn't look like there was any kind of reflection. So you kind of had that thing as well. Yeah, I've got a friend of mine who is they're a lecturer at theatre place, and they were saying it's trying to get it over, but then it's like, well, it kind of works for TV work because if you've got people kind of working on their kind of close-up television expressions, then that's fantastic. But it's kind of rubbish for theatre acting when you're kind of like doing big, booming voices and kind of breaking the kind of the microphone. In terms of money, because it always comes down to money.
Yeah, it does.
Let's talk pledge levels and let's talk how much is it going to cost? What am I going to get? Give me details.
All right. Well, $60, I mean, is the headline number. That's the MSRP for the game. And we worked hard to keep it below that. I think that's, there's there's your Gloomhavens and whatever that have these huge boxes. And I think we do have a lot of pieces in there, but this is not a Gloomhaven experience, and we're not trying to be. This is 60 to 90 minutes. This is sitting down with your friends who may not be role players, who may not be big board gamers, and having fun, right? And so I think you really got to stay under the $60 level for that. So that's the basic level that gets you in the door. Then at $80, we've got our Kickstarter exclusive edition, which is going to come with some extra scenarios, a booster pack for your combat cards, as well as a map we're working on, which it's a silly thing, but I am kind of really excited about the map. So we're going for like Taelmoor is the name of the continent in this world. Right. And so we're going for like an old school fantasy map vibe. Yeah. And all of the locations of interest are going to have QR codes. So it's a scan and discover fantasy map where you can boop it with your phone, get some extra information about different locations on the continent and stuff like that, which is actually, it's a feature in the game too, which we're pretty proud of. Is just there any sort of major thing that gets mentioned in the game. The tutorial mission is all about the Shattered Band, which is this mercenary guild. Mm-hmm. There's a little like Wikipedia style link on that. So we have this is actually a setting. My brother Eli, he role plays a ton. He's been working on this setting for 5-6 years, something like that. Okay. So we have just a ton of lore that it's in the background. The scenarios aren't about a larger meta plot or something like with some other games, but it's really nice to have that level of background there and to let players explore it just like they're going Wikipedia diving or something. So you can jump around to all these different entries to find out more about the world if you so desire. If your friend's taking a long time on their turn, right? There's something to read.
I'm gonna make myself a coffee and I'm gonna read up. I'm gonna read up about this mountain while you're deciding if you're gonna move 2 steps to the left or 2 steps to the right, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And it is, so I think a danger with digital games, right, is that everyone ends up in their phones, which I think kind of the point of board games is to get people away from that. So I think, to be clear, it is a co-op game. You are going to be collaborating about decisions. We have found it to be actually more engaging than a lot of other board games because you're all reading passages out loud to each other. You're talking about what to do next, how to solve this riddle or that riddle. So in our experience, in our playtests, it's actually been a really engaged thing, but you never know when you need a little bit of extra reading.
I warned you I was going to bring up this question. You have a dwarf. Yeah. She appears to have a beard. She has bright auburn hair.
Glorious beard.
Bright, as all dwarfs should. She has a glorious beard. Mm-hmm. What kind of accent has she got, Zach? What accent, Zach?
Well, it's maybe awkward to say it in front of you. I don't know. I don't know if I can.
Is it?
It is. So
it's a Scottish accent, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, in my head. So that's the thing is none of these characters, none of these items have names. None of them. It's all. You're supposed to. It is. But we gave her a beard, and we thought that was fun because we're like, not enough dwarven women have beards. They're supposed to have beards. Let's give her a beard. But our goal with all the design really was to do something familiar, but also a little bit different. We wanted it to be a little fun, a little unexpected. Like you actually get to see a dwarf woman with a beard, which you don't see that often. No. And as an example, right, there's all sorts of little details like that. But at the same time, we wanted it to feel like the stuff we grew up with, the sort of pulpy 80s, like sword and sorcery kind of stuff. So So yeah, the dwarf is a redhead, and in my brain, at least, talks with a Scottish accent. But that's not canon. Everyone's interpretation is valid.
Just keep digging.
She can talk with a deep, a deep like Southern accent or something.
Okay.
And what is the equivalent if you're in the UK? Actually,
well, I know that they would all do Scottish accent. Can you do?
Is there a different kind of accent that dwarves have?
No, it's like we're proud. I mean, there's not any part of us that isn't going. I'm going to go around in mine now. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be using my axe. Every dwarf has a Scottish accent. Everybody knows that. Can you do a Scottish accent? No, that's the question, Zach.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it has, to be clear, like I did get a degree in acting. But it has been years since I've attempted any accent of any kind, and I doubt they were ever very good. And nobody paid me to act, to be clear.
Right.
I did it for free, and people sometimes regretted it. But all right.
It's not Mel. We're not looking at Mel Gibson Scottish either, okay? And we're not. Go on.
A bit of a Scottish accent. You might talk like this. I can do a better Irish one. But the Scottish one, for whatever reason, always threw me. Even when I was in school, like I couldn't get it done. I don't know. I'm a dwarf. I got a beard. I'm mostly just talking a bit low right now. There's honestly not much I'm doing.
That's so crushing.
Saying
disappointed by the fact that you're bringing in this dwarf and yet you can't do yourself a little bit.
Sorry.
It's just absolutely.
I truly apologize.
You don't have to apologize to me. You just have to apologize to every single Scottish person you ever meet for the rest of your life. I
would like to, on the record right now, apologize to all of Scotland for that accent that I just subjected you to, as well as the accent that the dwarf has in my head, which is stereotypical and wrong.
Yeah. See, the thing is, is that every time we release a show, we use something called Headline. And Headline takes a snippet of the show. And what it does is it takes a snippet of the show and it does auto captions on the show. And because I've got a Scottish accent, it never, ever does the subtitles properly. It's become a joke. So what I'm going to do for this particular episode is I'm going to take a snippet of what you just said and I will put it into Headline and see if it actually understands you. And if it does understand you because it picks up the American lilt in your accent, we will know that Headliner is racist. That's all I'm going to say. Basically, when's the campaign kickoff, Zach? When can we find it?
So we are kicking off. July 13th, Tuesday, July 13th. It'll be in the morning our time, so probably in the afternoon your time. It should go live. And yeah, it'll be pretty standard campaign. We'll run for a month. We'll see how it goes.
Awesome. What we'll do is obviously we will make sure that we put all the links to all the information into our show notes so that we have got some notes to show. If people are interested in finding out more about you and obviously about the wonderful Eli and the fantastic Will, where can they find you on the internet webs, Zach?
Well, we have creeped into every corner of the internet. There is, if you search for Taelmoor, you'll find an Instagram, a Twitter, a website. But if you're looking for the game, probably the best thing is taelmoor.com, which if you don't know how to spell it, we bought all of the misspellings of that as well, so you should be fine. It should just redirect you.
You just try to spell it any way you want. That's a guarantee. That's a guarantee from Zach here. He's saying that you can spell it how you want. You're definitely going to find his product and his website and everything like that. You've got that on recording. He said that. He probably didn't mean to say it, but hey, there's no way I'm editing this out. I'm just telling you now.
I should actually clarify. The one the like most obvious spelling.
Yeah.
Like the word tail followed by the word more, M-O-R-E, was super expensive and somebody already had it. So we don't have that one. But every other spelling you can think of will redirect to the proper spelling, which is Taelmoor.
There we go.
Taelmoor.
Taelmoor.com.
.com.
There you go. And as I say, we'll make sure that we put all those links in the show notes so that including the Kickstarter link, because Zach will send us the Kickstarter link, of course.
I will.
You will. And if you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, then go to Google's and search for We're Not Wizards, and you shall find us where the wild things are. Because I watched that film again recently, and it reduces me to tears every time because it's such a beautiful film. You'll find us on Facebook, and you'll find us on Twitter, and you'll find us on Instagram, and you will find us on our blog, which is we'renotwizards.co.uk, and all of the other podcast episodes, which is we'renotwizards.com. If you like not only listening to us and reading us, but you'd like to actually wear us, then go and check out sirmeeple.com, who have wonderful attire that you can purchase with various different phrases that we use, including kind of our little kind of make something awful and we're many things, but we're not wizards. Just anything. Go and check it out. They do some fantastic designs, and they would love it if you bought some cloth for your back. If you like what you've listened today and you want to show us some support, then tell somebody else. That'd be lovely. And if you like us even more than that, then go to the Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating or a review. And as we say, if you are going to be leaving us a rating or a review, don't leave us 10 stars, because that just makes me big-headed and they need to be stopped. But don't leave us 0 stars, because that'll make us cry. Leave us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average. And, we're just that little bit average. But the person who's not been average is rather wonderful, rather fantastic, Zach Delventhal. Thank you for coming on the show, Zach.
Thank you, Richard. It was a blast.
There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we're many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Zach?
We are not.
We're Scottish dwarfs with bad accents. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Zach. Say goodbye, Zach.
Goodbye, everyone.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, make something awful. And if you fancy getting involved in an adventure where you're kind of living in the physical and the digital, you're scanning and you're playing and you're laughing and you're accenting and you're finding out about lore, you want a little bit more, get yourself some Taelmoor. But until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.